An insert. If you would like to take that out and follow along, I highly advise it because we want you to get the full impact of what we're doing in the series. If you notice some of our new banners that are around, we got them just before our sermon series started on What on Earth Am I Here For? I just kind of want to do a little bit of a review. We first discovered our first purpose that God has given to us, and that happens to be worship. Worship is loving God. There's so many different definitions. We're going to just keep it simple so that fewer words, easier to remember. Worship, loving God. That's me loving God. Fellowship was our second purpose that we covered. That also can be kept to two words. Loving others, and specifically loving God's people, because that's whom we're in fellowship, doing life together with other believers, loving others. Last week, Daniel spoke about discipleship and how that we are created to be like Jesus. There's only 2 times the word Christian is used in the Bible, in the New Testament, only 2 times. But you know how many times the word disciple has been used? I don't know, look it up, I'm not sure. So. But let me tell you this, I should have done my homework. I can guarantee you, much more than the word Christian. Because what Jesus intended for people who follow him was not just to promote a religion, and think that we are better than others. We are put on this earth after he saved us, put us into that relationship with him to be followers of him. We're not here to make a name for ourselves, toot our own horn, and promote a church building. We're here to put Jesus Christ on display, the best that we can. And so the learning process, Daniel covered that last week, discipleship. And right behind Tim Carey, right in the narthex in the back there, is our purpose that we're covering today. And it's called ministry. So we have the message titled this morning, Shaped for Serving God. We are shaped for serving God. And so we're going to be talking about ministry and how each and every one of us can be used in this aspect, because at this church, Wyoming Avenue Christian Church, we believe every member should be a minister. So whether you're new or whether you've been here for a while, we believe that if you're a follower of Jesus Christ, you should not be sitting, soaking, souring, and stinking in the pew. We believe that God has enabled you with abilities, and we're going to talk about that, to serve him. And the way that you serve him, we're going to be finding out what that looks like and how that can be accomplished. But God has shaped you so you can serve him. And so we need to understand that as we look around, no 2 people in this room are alike. None of us are the same. We're unique in every single way. I'm not a scientist, but from what I hear about a person's DNA, and please don't ask me what DNA stands for, because again, I'm not a scientist. I probably couldn't pronounce the words, but I'm blown away. Working in the medical field, working with doctors and nurses, and hearing them talk about how complex our bodies are and how unique that we are created by God. And just how certain people's bodies can endure pain and tolerate it, so many things, and can endure physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Just the way God has wired us, it's just amazing that God has given us perhaps a unique voice, unique eye color, and a unique thumbprint. When you think about our uniqueness from God, unlike anybody else's thumbprint. Even your heartbeat, doctors tell me, are unique, unlike anyone else's. And aren't you glad God doesn't clone things? Can you imagine 2 Dennis Grays out there today? I've heard there's another Dennis Gray out there. I don't advise. He probably comes from a family of horse thieves. But God doesn't clone anything. You are the real thing. You are the real deal, created by God. And God uniquely shaped you to fulfill a unique purpose while you are here on planet Earth, to make a unique contribution. I would like you to go to our first passage in your notes, and that passage is from one of the Psalms, Psalm 139. I recently shared this psalm at a assisted living in Dallas, the Meadows Manor, last week, and I was able to explain to people the power of God, how God also is unique. He is omnipresent. It means he's everywhere present. God, throughout this psalm, we see that God is omniscient. He is all-knowing. Nothing surprises him. And God also is omnipotent. That means he is all-powerful. And with that being said, it's just the uniqueness of God. Let's go to verses 13 and 14 and find out a little bit more about him and what he's done for you and for me. He says this, David wrote this about God. He says, "For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful." I know that full well. Anybody, even an unsaved person who doesn't ascribe to salvation in Jesus Christ, but they got some knowledge about God, agree that these bodies and our purpose is quite unique. And even an unsaved person is impressed with what God could do, with the beauty of the creation to the beauty of his creation. Human beings, we're made in the image and likeness of God. And so therefore, God doesn't make junk. And no matter where you're at today, what your opinion is of yourself, you could have a low self-esteem, you could have a high self-esteem. God says that you're worth saving. And that while you're here, he expects you to serve him. Let's find out how that takes place. Well, Job, we got another passage, Job chapter 10 and verse number 8. The beginning of the verse, Job says, even in the midst of his trials, remember Job suffered a lot, suffered some things perhaps we would never go through. He says, "God, your hands shaped me and made me." Your hands shaped me and made me. So we got a few fill in the blanks for you to be able to follow for your understanding. We've already talked about some of these things. First of all, write this down. You are unique. If you didn't hear that word unique enough, now you heard it again. You are unique. What is unique? One of a kind. One of a kind. You are wonderfully complex. David talked about that in Psalm 139. We're fearfully and wonderfully made. We are wonderfully complex. And, we started talking about the DNA and everything. It's just, even the medical people that I work with are in awe of new discoveries about the body and the functions of organs and everything. You are wonderfully complex. Next, you are shaped for serving God. If you're a follower of Jesus Christ, you are shaped for serving God. Not serving yourself, but serving God. And we go to a great passage of Scripture. I memorized this when I was a teenager. It gave me great inspiration for pursuing God's will and God's direction after high school. Ephesians 2:10 says, "We are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus." For what? To do good works, which God prepared in advance, even before we came to salvation, even before we were born, perhaps even thought of. These good works, God prepared in advance for us to do. amazing. God, remember, he's all-knowing. He's all-powerful. He can do anything. He knows things ahead of time, that confounds us, that confounds leaders and, people who think they got, this whole world figured out. And God says, nope, I see the bigger picture. I'm still on the throne. I haven't relinquished my responsibility. I'm still in control. And so it's interesting that as you read Ephesians 2:10, that word workmanship, as it is translated in other translations, and I forget which particular translation, talks about that we are God's masterpiece. And when you think about a masterpiece, maybe perhaps if you're into artwork or sculpture, some of the fine arts, you see a masterpiece. You see that nobody could duplicate this. A masterpiece is just amazing. That's what God not only thinks about you, but believes that you are his masterpiece. And so if you were down in the dumps before you came here this morning, I hope Ephesians 2:10 just has you floating on cloud 9, has you believing this truth. You see, there are two things you can do with God's word. You can accept it and embrace it, into your life, or you can say, nah, I don't believe that. I'm going to believe what I want to believe because I'm in control of my destiny. I'm in control of my life. You're missing the point. You're missing the blessing. God ahead of time. If you are a follower of Jesus, I don't know every heart, but God gives you that encouragement. I've already prepared the works for you to do. All you got to do is do them. And after all, you are my masterpiece. You're my workmanship. And I'm going to give you exactly the same power and ability to be able to do these works, to put me on display. That's our fourth purpose. That's our purpose personally as a follower of Jesus, and also our purpose as a church, so that we can make a difference and put Jesus Christ on display. And so here's what makes up your shape. Here is what makes up your shape. We often use this in Bible study. We've used this in sermons before. So for some of you, this may be a refresher course for you. We're spelling out the word shape, S-H-A-P-E. This is your shape as a believer, a follower of Jesus. S stands for spiritual gifts. You don't have to fill in these blanks. I thought there's plenty more to fill in. I put these in ahead of time. Spiritual gifts. You see, when you become a Christian, a follower of Jesus, God gives you special abilities so you can better serve others. And these spiritual gifts, every believer in Jesus Christ has at least one special spiritual gift. Some may have more. And over the last couple months, our Wednesday night Bible study group have been studying the spiritual gifts, taking a look at the New Testament and finding out what they are in particular and what are their function. And we discovered probably approximately 18 spiritual gifts that God has given to a number of believers. Like I said, you have at least one. You might even have more. You might have 2 or 3. You may even have 4 or 5. But narrow it down, discover what your spiritual gift is from God, what you're good at, and in order to be used by God, you got to discover your shape. So spiritual gifts, there's a lot that can be said. Let's just take a look at one verse, 1 Corinthians chapter 7 and verse number 7. Paul says to believers, but each man has his own gift from God. One has this gift, another has that. And so we have this gift. And so we're making everyone aware you're shaped for serving God. It starts with your spiritual gifts. Letter H. Letter H stands for your heart, not your blood pumping a muscle there in the middle of your chest, but your heart, the seat of your emotions. What is the heart? Basically, you have passions, things that you enjoy doing. It's just natural, for your heart to love others, to teach them. Maybe you got a gift of teaching, and that just comes natural. That's your passion. I've talked to many ministers in the Wyoming Valley, in the Scranton, Carbondale area, and I tell them what I do. I'm a bivocational pastor. And I have a congregation, but I do the hospice work. I'm a chaplain, and they look at me like I've got 3 heads, and I could never do what you were doing. Thank you for doing that. And I said, trust me, I could probably never do what you're doing. My gifts are not administration, sitting in an office, being organized, and things like that. I got to be out where the people are. And I discovered that gift a number of years ago, and I said, God, give me the abilities, give me the opportunities. He never fails. He never fails. That's my passion, to bring comfort to people at the end of life, and to share the gospel, to help people to know that God not only loves them, but he's preparing a home for us in heaven for eternity. And so I've got that passion for people to come to know Jesus. It's something that I enjoy doing. You've got perhaps some similar passions yourselves. Let's take a look at Proverbs chapter 4 and verse number 23. Very important verse. It says, above all else, guard your heart, for it is the wellspring of life. Guard your heart, your emotions. Keep your passions in check. Let's make sure that those passions are not tooting your own horn, putting yourself up on a pedestal so that people can applaud you or people can sing your praises. That's not why you have these passions. You have these passions to serve God with. And it has nothing to do with self-glory or self-gratification. So the word shape, we got the S out of the way, we got the H out of the way, letter A, talks about our abilities. It talks about our abilities. And from birth, God has given each and every one of us natural abilities. And it could be anything from athletics to art to accounting. It could, the sky is the limit as far as your abilities. God uniquely gave you those abilities. And in 2 Corinthians chapter 3 and verse number 5, Paul tells us, not that we are competent in ourselves to claim anything for ourselves, but our competence comes from where? Comes from God. It comes from God. So we need to give credit where credit is due and let God, receive the glory for anything that we do. So we talked about abilities. Let's move on to personality. Letter P in the word shape, your personality. Some people are introverts. Some people are extroverts. Some people love to plan everything. That's not me. That's why I've got a wife. She's just creative, organized, and she's a planner. I'm a fly by the seat, tell me where to go, what to do, and a lot of times, maybe the planning is up there, but it's like I hit the ground running. And so our personality, they're different, but different can be good. Others work best perhaps at the last minute. And so those who aren't planners, that's okay. We're in good company, aren't we? Take a look at what we see here in the Old Testament, Genesis 25 and verse number 27. Some differences with the twin brothers there, Esau and Jacob. Esau loved the outdoors. He was he was a hunter. He just loved hunting. Provided food for his father Isaac. Him and Esau and Isaac, father and son, they had a lot of similarities and such. That was Esau's personality. His twin brother Jacob, different story. He was a mama's boy. He was a quiet man who stayed at home. Nothing wrong with those. We can't always be the same. There's no cookie cutter approach to our personalities. You just got to know yourself. Find out who you are, and you don't have to have someone else's personality because God didn't give it to you. Recognize your personality. We go on to the last letter, E, in shape, and it talks about our experience. God put you here on earth to go through a lot, to experience a lot, and this falls under the category that even in your worst experiences that you have gone through, Romans 8:28 says, but God works all things together for the good of those who love him, to those who are called according to his purpose. So your experiences, no matter what you've been through, it could have been traumatic, it could have been life-changing, it could have been a pleasure, perhaps, some good experiences. Whatever the experiences, God will use them. God will use your experiences with your family, perhaps some experiences with your education, perhaps some experiences with your occupation. For some of you, maybe you've held a few jobs and you learn what to do. You've probably, through hardship, you learn what not to do in the occupation. And other things, we've all been through emotions, emotional roller coasters. And so you've had emotional experiences and probably perhaps so much more that I'm leaving out to allow you to be able to serve God to help others. And so Romans 8, we already shared that. It was fresh on my mind, and so want to get that out there. God can use anything. The sky is the limit. He can use anybody, and no matter what you're going through. And you're here for a reason, so you can discover your fourth purpose. Your fourth purpose. By using your unique, handcrafted shape, you can do this fourth purpose. Serve God by serving others. Serve God or serving God by serving others. Again, as Rick Warren, if you've read the Purpose-Driven Life book, kind of been rebranded, What on Earth Am I Here For? He begins day number 1 with what? Life is not about you, not about me. So you got to get that priority straight. When you're called to serve, it's not about you and what you want or what you like. You are shaped to serve God by serving others. It crosses the grain. It's countercultural than what this world teaches. The world teaches that you got to get ahead in life by stepping on others. You're priority number 1, and you got to be happy. God says, no, that's not how I work. The world is opposite of what God thinks and what God does. So my fourth purpose is to serve God by serving others. And God calls this banner number 4, ministry, that we introduced. It's all about ministry. Matthew chapter 20 and verse number 28, Jesus said, just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. So it's not going to be a cushy job that God is giving to you to serve, because you're going to be others-oriented. And if that's not your style, you keep hanging in there. God's going to chip away, and as you discover this purpose, he's going to not only equip you, but he's going to enable you. He's going to give you the divine appointments to be used. So what's it look like to serve like Jesus? To be in ministry, it doesn't involve you wearing your collar backwards or anything like that. You don't have to have a title. You don't have to hold a position in a church. I truly believe that the local church is the catalyst in which ministry is done. Even though there are opportunities outside the church and such, I believe every ministry needs to begin here. Meeting each other's needs, and then eventually the spread of the gospel, being involved in community events. By the way, I'm very proud of our people. We had another terrific trunk or treat yesterday. I forget how many years we've been doing it, kind of changing up the way that we do it and just being a blessing to those in the community. We've had an increase in our own personal involvement of our people. But according to Tori, we had an actual increase in how many people came through in the hour and a half, 2 hours that were out there. And when you're involved in the community, people see, and our name is well publicized, and we were giving out information about the church. We're giving out gospel tracts, for children and for adults. So what does it look like to serve like Jesus? 3 things real quick. Number 1, serving like Jesus means being available. It means being available. And a lot of people think, I'm going to serve the God of the universe. I can't do that. I don't have the ability. He's God, I'm not. What is God thinking? You know what God is thinking? He doesn't care about your ability. All he asks you is for your availability. Let me say it again. Okay, in case you're just overwhelmed, so I can't serve God, I can't serve others, my life is a mess, I can't do that. God doesn't care about your ability or what you think your ability should be. All God cares about is your availability. Make yourself useful, make yourself available. What's going to happen? He's going to open up the floodgates. He's going to bring people to you that you're thinking, is this a God moment? God, is this you? 100% of the time. I'm not even going to mess with the 99.9%. 100% of the time, as you discover this purpose, God's going to bring people across your way in very unique ways. To say that God works in mysterious ways is an understatement, but what a pleasure. What a pleasure when you see him working in you and through you. Matthew chapter 20, verses 30 through 32. Jesus encountered 2 blind men. And the 2 blind men, when they saw Jesus, they shouted, "Lord, have mercy on us." And Jesus stopped. Notice in your notes, I kind of got this in bold print and got it underlined. Bring it to your attention. Jesus stopped and called them. "What do you want me to do for you?" he asked. He could have ignored them. They could have been an irritant. Blind guys, how are they going to be used? What's their value for your ministry? What's their value for your life? Jesus did not ignore them. He stopped what he was doing and he asked, "What can I do for you? What can I do for you?" And when Jesus stopped, we got to do the same thing in life. We also must be willing to be interrupted. If we're going to say, "God, I want to be used by you," and we make ourselves available, we also need to be willing to be interrupted from our schedules, our wants, our desires. All of a sudden, he gives us that divine appointment, and it's interrupting your agenda, your plans. Is this a divine appointment? Yes, 100% of the time. When God messes with your schedule, he knows what he's doing. He knows what is best for you, and you must be available to Jesus so that you get that blessing of serving with your shape, the way you were shaped to serve him. And most of Jesus's ministry involved miracles and such that were interruptions. You had the healing of the blind man. Jesus was getting ready to go to one place. All of a sudden, someone blind needed healing. How about some of the lame? Jesus was training the disciples, and all of a sudden, a lame person happens to be in the area, and it's a teachable moment to the disciples, interrupted, his original plans. And what happened? He healed the blind. He healed the lame. He healed the sick. The dead children he raised. And we find that despite the interruptions in his training of the disciples, he allowed the interruptions to take place to provide teachable opportunities. And Jesus allowed himself to be interrupted in almost all the ministry that he did. I want to share with you a quote from John Wesley. John Wesley was one of the founders of the Methodist Church. And John Wesley said this: "Do all the good you can, by all the means you can, by all the ways you can, in all the places you can, and at all the times you can, to all the people you can, as long as you ever can help them now." That's a good, I'm going to challenge myself to memorize that. It's, the point is well taken, isn't it? It is well taken, and that's why God blessed John Wesley in the ministry, and along with his family, just the way they grew in serving the Lord with these opportunities. But just because you say I'm available to God, it doesn't mean there's going to be some barriers. There are 3 common barriers to availability. We need to be aware of them. Number 1, self-centeredness. Self-centeredness. We need to understand that we can never be too busy for others. So that's a barrier we got to overcome. And for the sake of time, you can read the scriptures, but I want to get through these barriers. Self-centeredness, being worried about or concerned about my agenda, my dream, me, instead of others. Self-centeredness. That's that first barrier to availability. Second barrier is perfectionism. Perfectionism. Perfectionism is something that can often be a hindrance to your availability. I'm waiting for the perfect opportunity. I'm waiting until I memorize a few more scriptures. I'm waiting for God to make it clearly known that I'm supposed to go in this direction, or I'm supposed to help this person. It's like perfectionism is the enemy of service. Waiting for the right moment. When is the right moment? All the time. All the time. Third barrier, materialism. Materialism. Our number 1 priority, is it things or people? Our number 1 priority in life, of course, God is number 1, but when it comes to service, don't let materialism get in the way. I want, I need, I got to have this, forget others, I don't have time for you. Materialism. We've got to prioritize people. We've got to prioritize people. That is how we make ourselves more readily available. A second way of what serving like Jesus looks like. Serving like Jesus means being grateful. Being grateful. And it's so important that you have the attitude of gratitude. That as you live with that in mind, you will become others-oriented because you'll be counting your blessings. You'll be counting your blessings and realizing that what God does is never a mistake. And it's always going to be good for me. And so I've got to be grateful. John 11, verses 41 through 42, Jesus had just raised Lazarus from the dead. And he says here, he looked up and said, Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I said this for the benefit of the people standing here. Jesus wanted to be that example of being grateful to his Father who empowered him, who called him, who used him to demonstrate that he too was God through the raising of the dead. And Lazarus, you remember how many days Lazarus was dead? 4 days. 4 days. I like how the old King James translation talked about Lazarus' body, what people thought about his body. Lord, he stinketh. Why would you want to go into that grave? He stinketh. He stinks. Why would you put yourself there? And Jesus didn't allow that. He made himself available. He was grateful to the Father for the opportunity, and he just wowed the people, raised him from the dead. Poor Lazarus. Could have been in heaven. He had I'm back here again, Lord. I'm back here again, Lord. Okay. You know what you're doing. I was this close to being in eternity. But 2 barriers to gratefulness. Number 1, comparing and criticizing. Comparing and criticizing, a huge barrier to gratefulness. When you lose your focus and you stop being thankful, you find yourself comparing and criticizing. And there's no room for that. Don't let that be a barrier to usefulness with God. Comparing and criticizing. A second barrier is this: wrong motivations. wrong motivations. Those wrong motivations can lead to emptiness, and they can lead to misplaced priorities also. A third way to figure out what it looks like to serve, with the shape that God has given us, to serve like Jesus, it means being faithful. It means being faithful. John chapter 17 and verse 4, Jesus said, I have brought you glory, speaking to his Father. I brought you glory on earth by completing the work you gave me to do. So what does the word faithful mean? The word faithful means that you don't give up. You don't quit. You keep serving because of all that God has done for you. Saving you, making you his child, putting you into his family, delivering you from your past that perhaps nobody else knows about but you. And that's fine. But as you count your blessings and you see the need to stay faithful, and you got your priorities, don't quit, don't give up, God isn't finished, and he desires to use you. So as we close, God is doing something special at Wyoming Avenue. So much so that we had to revisit this from back about 4 or 5 years ago when we talked about our purposes. Some of you never knew why God put you here. And this church has a lot of opportunities for you to perform your shape. We have opportunities such as, perhaps some call them menial tasks, like greeting people at the door. Perhaps helping out in the parking lot, 2 parking lots. And we have permission across the street for people to park, because I know parking can be a premium. And so many opportunities there. We even have in our bulletin, we're looking for a children's ministry director. Tori has been, pardon the expression, manning that position for a while, and such. But she feels God has been leading her on to other areas of ministry in the church. And one thing that we really preach, we really try to push with people: do few things well. You don't have to hold a ton of positions and think that's spirituality and that's good with God. No, God would rather you take your shape, your abilities, and find a few ways to accomplish them, but do them well. And so children's ministry, nursery, positions such as elders, deacons, deaconesses, prayer chain, church choir, special music. You can have a ministry if you're creative and thoughtful. I was outside before a service changing the church sign. People see that sign. It's a double-sided sign for a reason. People are often blessed. They get encouraged from what they see. Mark in the back. I got to talk about you, friend. Mark's going through I've known Mark for a number of years. Mark's going through some things. He needed to be in church today. And the first thing he saw coming here was what the sign says. Don't have a prayer? Come inside for refills. We all can be captivated by a sign. That could be a ministry that God can use for you. Tech team. Dan and Courtney, sometimes Tim kicks in, sometimes David's there. They need a break. If you're into technology, we're live streaming, so many people watching at home, and what a blessing that is. They need some help. God can use you here, and the sky is the limit. Other endless opportunities for you to serve the way God has shaped you. I just wanted to whet your appetite, place that information out there, and you want to be used. There should be no active Christian sitting in a pew doing nothing. Opportunities are endless. We can create ministry because that's the purpose. one of the purposes of God for his church and for his people. I've had you here for a while, but really had to share my heart. And what we do here is we equip you with how to love God, how to serve him, how to be a blessing to others. So let's go to him in prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for your marvelous ways. We just continue to be in amazement with the discovery of these purposes and the plans that you have for us. Lord, it's easy to get discouraged when we think about living in this world. And we think about our past, we think about failures, falling short of our goals and successes. But Lord, you don't give up on us. You didn't create junk. We are your masterpiece. And so, Lord, lead us and guide us in those areas.